You're probably doing it again, sitting in silence, staring at your phone, waiting for something that never comes. No message, no call, no "I miss you." Just a cold, empty screen. She didn't block you. Didn't leave you with harsh words. There was no dramatic ending, no final closure. Just nothing. And that's what messes with your head the most. The absence of noise, the space where words should be, the quiet that feels louder than any argument ever could. You keep wondering what happened. Was it something you did, something you didn't do? Is she really done, or is she waiting for you to break, to reach out first, to make the first move? You start rehearsing imaginary conversations in your head, drafting messages you never send, reading old texts like they hold clues. The silence becomes a puzzle you can't solve, but let's call it what it is: torture. That space between silence and closure, it eats at you. It's not just about her not responding, it's the not knowing, the uncertainty, the emotional limbo. You feel like you're being punished for something, but you don't even know the crime. You're stuck in a loop, checking if she's online, scanning social media for signs, reading into everything she posts, trying to decode if it's about you. And through it all, you're not moving, you're frozen. Paralyzed by questions that won't leave you alone. You want to do something, anything, reach out, get answers, fix it. But how do you fix what hasn't even been acknowledged? How do you fight for something when you don't even know what you're fighting against? That's where the danger lies, because in that desperation for clarity, you risk losing your center. You become reactive, emotionally exposed, vulnerable in all the wrong ways. You don't just miss her presence. You miss the way she made you feel. Seen, validated, wanted, and now that's gone, and the silence is screaming louder than words ever could. But here's the brutal truth. This moment, this silence, it's not about her anymore. It's about you. Who you are when no one's responding. Who you are when love doesn't return your calls. This is where you find out what you're really made of. Because silence, as painful as it is, doesn't just strip away comfort. It reveals character. She's not just being quiet to forget you. She's being quiet to watch you. You think it's over, but in reality, it might just be a test. The shift from good morning, texts and late night calls to complete silence wasn't random. It was intentional. You were used to the little hits of validation. A smiley face, a heart reaction, a quick thinking of you. Now, nothing. And while you're stuck wondering what went wrong, she's observing one thing. Do you collapse without her attention? That's the first test. Not to be cruel, but to see what you're really made of when the spotlight turns off. Is your self-worth built on her words, her presence, her approval? Or do you have your own foundation? She's pulling away not to destroy you, but to see if you self-destruct. Most men, when faced with silence, unravel. They text paragraphs, over-apologize, ask what they did wrong, try to earn their way back into her good graces. But the man who doesn't panic, who doesn't rush to fix something undefined, he sends a different message. He's the one who makes her stop scrolling, stop wondering, and start feeling the weight of his calm. Because here's the thing. When you act like you're nothing without her, she believes you. She sees it as emotional dependency, not loyalty. If your whole life pauses when she goes quiet, it tells her one thing. She owns you emotionally. But if she watches you continue to thrive, hitting the gym, chasing goals, focused, calm, present, that silence starts to turn on her. It no longer feels like control. It starts to feel like distance. And the more grounded you are, the more it rattles her idea that you needed her to feel whole. This is the moment when you prove whether you're built from compliments or from character. You don't need to post about it. You don't need to pretend. You just need to be solid. Let your actions speak. Let your consistency talk louder than any reaction. She may have gone silent to test your balance, but if you stand tall in the silence without losing your frame, that's when the power begins to shift. That's when she doesn't just remember you. She rethinks you. Because a man who doesn't need attention to stay grounded is a man who commands it without saying a word. Some women use silence not to punish, but to provoke clarity. When she pulls back, It's often not because she's completely gone. It's because she's trying to see something. In you, in herself, in the space between. She's not always looking for a reaction. Sometimes, she's looking for a revelation. She wants to know. Asterisk, what happens when she's no longer easy to reach? Asterisk, does your world fall apart? Do you flood her inbox? Do you beg for an explanation that never arrives? Or do you step back, take a breath, and realign yourself without chasing someone who created space? Here's the truth. Most men respond to that silence by spiraling. They panic. They send long messages. They overanalyze. They call 10 times in a row, trying to fix what hasn't even been spoken aloud. But that never brings her closer. It only proves how tightly she still holds your emotional world. And she's watching all of it. She's watching not to laugh, not to mock you, but to asterisk measure asterisk you, to see whether your sense of peace is internal or if it evaporates the moment she disappears. She wants to know if you respect distance, if you can still move forward without reaching back, if you can be patient, not because you're waiting on her, but because you're focusing on yourself. That's what separates the man who reacts from the man who recalibrates. Because chasing a woman who hit pause is like trying to continue a conversation someone intentionally walked away from. She didn't press stop. She pressed silence. She's observing, measuring, feeling. And your stillness in that storm tells her everything. If you flood the silence with noise, you fail the test. But if you pull back too, not from bitterness, but from clarity, then you shift the dynamic. Because now you're not reacting to her absence, you're responding with alignment. And the man who can stay calm, grounded, and aware in that emotional gray area, that's rare. That's powerful. You don't need to play games. You don't need to mirror her energy with ego. You need to rise above it with self-respect. Let her wonder what you're thinking. Let her feel the absence of your reaction. And in that quiet space, you don't just survive, you evolve. Not because you didn't care, but because you cared enough about yourself to stay centered when silence tried to shake you. When silence hits, most men don't stay calm. They lose control. It's not always visible, but it's there. The overthinking, the constant checking, the urge to respond to absence with noise. Some lash out in frustration, sending impulsive texts, throwing guilt, or crafting long explanations she never asked for. Others go passive, aggressive, posting cryptic quotes, trying to get her attention indirectly. But what she's really watching for is something deeper, not the drama, but the discipline. She's not looking to see if you explode. She's watching to see if you asterisk can hold your emotional frame asterisk without her presence. When a woman goes silent, it's like she's stepping back to listen without speaking. She's not just wondering what you'll say. She's watching asterisk, how asterisk you'll behave. Will you stay rooted or unravel? Most men confuse silence with rejection and immediately start proving how much it hurts. But she doesn't respect chaos. She respects composure. She wants to know that you can carry emotional weight without dropping your integrity. She wants to feel that if things ever get heavy between you two, you won't collapse or lash out. She's not testing your love, she's testing your leadership, your ability to stay centered under emotional pressure. A man who doesn't panic, doesn't post, doesn't beg, that man is rare. Not because he doesn't feel, but because he asterisk knows how to feel without losing himself. Asterisk, that kind of stability is magnetic. It makes her rethink everything. While others spiral, you're still. While others perform, you remain present. And that difference is powerful. It's not indifference. It's maturity. It's the ability to feel deeply but respond wisely. Your restraint doesn't go unnoticed. It speaks louder than 1,000 texts. She might not acknowledge it, but she feels it. She feels the difference between a man who reacts out of fear and a man who responds from strength. And in that contrast, you become unforgettable, not because you begged for it, but because you held your ground when everything tried to shake it. Silence is never just silence. It's a mirror, And the way you handle it reveals more about your emotional depth than any words ever could. So let the silence speak, not just about her, but about you. And if you can stay grounded when nothing around you feels certain, that's when you stop being a man she left and start becoming the man she respects. When she pulls away, it's not always because she's done. It's often to see how you'll respond, not just in the obvious sense of calling or texting, but deeper. She wants to know if your actions will mirror hers or if you'll master your own. Will you go quiet just because she did? Will you match her distance out of ego? Or will you stay consistent, not to chase her, but because you're grounded enough to move from strength instead of emotion? That's where most men miss the mark. They think if she stops talking, they have to stop too, as if relationships are a game of tit for tat. But mirroring one's silence isn't emotional control, it's reaction. True strength lies in choosing a response that serves your growth, not your pride. If your silence is just a reflection of hers, you're still being controlled. But if your calm is rooted in clarity, not pain, you shift the energy entirely. She's trying to see if you can rise above the emotional confusion, not to prove a point to her, but to prove something to yourself, that you don't need to play emotional chess to feel powerful, that you can remain open without being desperate, still without being passive, emotionally available without being unstable. When you respond to her withdrawal, not with silence out of spite, but with a deeper focus on your own center, you're no longer reacting, you're evolving. This isn't about pretending not to care. It's about showing that your identity isn't built on her participation. You're not waiting to mirror her moves. You're mastering your own, that quiet strength. The kind that doesn't flinch, doesn't fake, doesn't chase, is what shifts the story. She may wonder, is he silent because he's broken or because he's finally whole? That question stays with her. And more importantly, it changes you. Because when your stillness comes from healing instead of hurt, it has weight. It commands respect, not pity. It becomes less about her noticing you and more about you finally seeing yourself. That's when the silence turns from punishment to power. You're not just echoing her withdrawal. You're establishing your own emotional rhythm. And when that happens, you stop being reactive and start being resilient. Not because you're unaffected, but because you've learned how to respond with intention, not insecurity.